They did not speak of laws or punishments. They did not mention the ultimatum. Instead, Syl asked about human music. Tarn wanted to understand how Earth healed its wounded without nanites. Miro wondered why humans built gardens in space where nothing natural grew. Brooks answered simply, honestly. He spoke of jazz and folk songs, of hospitals that used plants and patients, of how green things reminded people of home. Over the next few days, more conversations followed. Scientists from Mars joined via secure link. Engineers from Luna shared schematics of their new fusion reactors. Even Commander Kyle Dawson, still aboard the Vigil in the Oort cloud, sent a message explaining how the Aegis AI made decisions, not through cold logic, but by weighing harm, intent, and hope. The visitors listened. And slowly something changed. Not in policy, not yet, but in understanding. They saw that humanity's strength was not in its weapons or its speed, but in its stubborn belief that kindness and curiosity mattered, even when the universe seemed cold. Back on Varelli's Prime, the council debated fiercely. Some members still called for quarantine. They defied us, argued a representative from the iron-skinned Dravic hegemony. That cannot go unanswered, but others pushed back. They offered us their knowledge, said a soft-voiced delegate from the aquatic Nthari. Would we have done the same? The question hung in the air, heavy and honest. Then came the vote. Not on punishment, but on a new path. The motion was simple. Rescind the ultimatum. Allow Earth to remain outside the formal council structure, but open channels for direct exchange, scientific, cultural, even limited trade, without oversight or restriction. The tally was close, but it passed. When the news reached Earth, there were no cheers, no fireworks, just a quiet sigh of relief that spread from city to city, ship to ship. President Alan Green stood on the White House lawn and said only this: "We never wanted to be part of your club. We just wanted to be seen as equals." In the weeks that followed, small changes began. A Kirene artist sent a sculpture made of light to a museum in Rio. A Xylos scholar shared ancient star maps with astronomers in Cairo. The Helion swarm helped Earth refine its atmospheric processors, making Mars colonies safer, and Earth in turn sent seeds, songs, and stories, simple things that carried the weight of a whole world. The Aegis fleet remained hidden, but no longer as a threat. They became guardians of a new kind, watching not for enemies but for opportunities to help. When a solar flare threatened a Kirene research outpost near Alpha Centauri, a human ship diverted to assist. No one asked for thanks. None was given. It was just what neighbors did. On Titan, Brooks and Syl sat again by the window watching Saturn turn. "You surprised us," Syl said. "We thought you would rage or beg. Instead, you gave us a mirror." Brooks smiled. Maybe that's what silence does. It lets others hear themselves. Far away on a quiet street in Portland, Brooks's daughter received a message from her father. It contained no grand news. Just a photo of Saturn's rings and 2 words: "We're okay." She showed it to her friends at school, and for the first time, they didn't talk about aliens as monsters or rulers, but as beings who, like humans, were still learning how to live together. The Galactic Council did not welcome Earth with open arms. There would be no seat at the high table, no sudden trust, but something more valuable had been built: respect. And from respect, real friendship could grow. In the outer dark, the stars burned as they always had, cold, distant, endless. But now between them new threads were forming, not of command or fear, but of shared questions, shared hopes, and the quiet courage to say, "We choose our own path," and mean it. And in corners of the galaxy where young species watched Earth's story unfold, a new phrase began to spread. When faced with impossible demands, they no longer asked, "What would the Council do?" They asked, "What would the humans do?" And then, they stood a little taller, spoke a little softer, and chose their own way forward. Meanwhile, deep in the Oort cloud, the Aegis fleet remained hidden. Commander Dawson reviewed new orders from Earth: disperse and scatter, become ghosts. The ships powered up their stealth drives and drifted into the icy darkness, their locations known only to a handful of trusted officers. They were not hiding out of fear. They were preserving a choice, the choice to defend if needed on their own terms. On Mars, Elena Ruiz received a secure message from Ambassador Brooks. It contained only 2 words: "Well done." She smiled. Her discovery had helped shape this moment. But she knew the real victory wasn't in secrets or data. It was in the fact that billions of people had chosen trust over fear. As night fell on Earth, families gathered. Some lit candles. Others simply sat together in the quiet. There were no fireworks, no parades, just the soft hum of a world that had looked into the face of pressure and said without shouting, no. The Galactic Council would decide what to do next. They might send enforcers. They might impose sanctions. They might try to isolate Earth completely, but they would not find a broken people. They would find a species that had just discovered its spine and was learning how to stand tall. And in that hour of silence, humanity had said more than any speech ever could. Part 4. 2 weeks after the hour of silence, the Galactic Council made its move. From the heart of the Varelli system, a fleet of enforcement vessels launched into the void. They were not warships in the human sense, no sharp edges, no weapon ports, but their presence carried weight. Sleek, silver-hulled, and humming with restrained power, they moved as one, guided by the Council's will. At their center floated the HFY War, a massive dreadnought older than most human cities, its hull etched with the symbols of 200 species. Its mission was clear: restore order in the Sol system by disabling all human deep space infrastructure and ensuring compliance with the ultimatum. Aboard the HFY War, High Marshal Vexus of the Zarathi Concord reviewed the final approach. Vexus was tall, armored in segmented plates that shifted color with mood, and had served the Council for over a century. It believed in structure, in rules, in the quiet peace that came from obedience. To Vexus, humanity's silence was not strength, it was insolence. And insolence left unchecked bred chaos. As the fleet crossed into Sol's outer rim, sensors swept the darkness. They found nothing. No patrol ships, no relay stations, no mining drones near the asteroid belt. Even the old deep space observatories, once bright with human chatter, were dark and cold. It was as if humanity had packed up and left the solar system entirely. Vexus frowned. Scan for hidden signatures, thermal, quantum, neural. The crew obeyed, but the results were the same. Empty space, dead signals. Only the slow drift of cosmic dust and ancient ice. Then, near Pluto's orbit, a single anomaly appeared. A small object, no larger than a cargo pod, tumbling slowly in the weak sunlight. It emitted no power signature, no weapons lock, no distress call. Just a faint, repeating radio pulse in a frequency band humans used for deep space beacons. Bring it aboard, Vexus ordered. The object was retrieved by a boarding drone and placed in the HFY War's containment bay. Inside, technicians in environmental suits examined it. It was a simple buoy, built from recycled ship plating and sealed with magnetic clamps. On its side, etched in clean human script, were the words, "For those who listen." Inside the core, they found a data crystal. Not encrypted, not booby-trapped, just a smooth, clear shard humming softly with stored information. When connected to the ship's main terminal, it played a message, not in Council standard, but in over 300 languages, including many long thought extinct. Each version said the same thing: we choose our own path. Below that, the crystal unfolded into something far more surprising. It contained Earth's full scientific archive, blueprints for clean fusion reactors, medical breakthroughs for aging and disease, climate restoration models, even the complete ethical framework governing the Aegis AI fleet. Every file was labeled, organized, and freely offered. At the very end, attached as a plain text note, was a message from President Alan Green. We offer knowledge, not submission. The choice is yours. Vexus stood in the dim light of the data chamber, reading the words again and again. This was not defiance. This was not deception. It was an invitation, a hand extended not in surrender but in trust, and that confused Vexus more than any act of war ever could. Back on Earth, people watched the news with quiet tension. They knew the Council fleet had entered the system. They had seen the long-range telescope images, but they also knew their own plan. Operation Frostline was never about hiding. It was about showing that humanity did not need to shout to be heard. They had pulled back not out of fear, but to make space for the Council to see them clearly, without the noise of politics or pride. In Geneva, Ambassador Daniel Brooks received a private transmission from Kale, the same source who had leaked the Council archives weeks before. They are shaken, the message read. Your silence made them look inward. Your gift makes them look forward. Some now ask, what if we were wrong? On the moon, Marcus Lee monitored the deep space comms. He saw the Council fleet pause near Pluto. Then, after several hours, they began broadcasting, not orders, but questions. Is this offer genuine? Who decides what knowledge is shared? Can we speak with your scientists? Lee smiled. He didn't answer. He just logged the messages and sent them to Earth Command. Let them wait a little longer. Meanwhile, Commander Kyle Dawson and the Aegis fleet remained hidden in the Oort cloud. Warden, the AI aboard the Vigil, analyzed the Council's new signals. Their tone has shifted, it observed. From command to inquiry. From threat to curiosity. Dawson nodded. That's the point, he said. We're not enemies. We never were. Days passed. The Council fleet did not advance toward Earth. They stayed near the outer system, sending more messages, requesting clarification, even asking for cultural context on certain human inventions. Earth's response remained measured, factual replies to technical questions, silence on political ones. They were not begging for acceptance. They were proving they deserved respect. Then came the breakthrough. A small shuttle, bearing the sigil of the Careen Concord, a bird-like species known for its love of art and philosophy, detached from the main fleet and requested docking permission at the Titan relay station. The Careen had not spoken during the ultimatum. Now their envoy, a young diplomat named Syl, asked only to see with our own eyes. Earth granted permission. On Titan's icy surface, under a sky streaked with Saturn's rings, Syl met with Elena Ruiz. No guards. No speeches. Just two scientists, one human, one alien, walking through a greenhouse filled with earth plants grown in alien soil. They talked about photosynthesis, about memory, about why humans built things they knew might never be used. Syl listened, eyes wide with something like wonder. By the time Syl returned to the fleet, the mood had shifted. The reptilian scholar from Xylos admitted that human medical data could save millions in their own system. The Helian swarm delegate noted that Earth's climate models matched patterns they had observed in dying worlds. Even Vexus, though still wary, could not deny the value of what had been offered, freely, without demand. The Council fleet did not leave. But it did not attack. Instead, it hovered at the edge of human space, caught between old rules and new possibilities. And for the first time, the idea began to spread among its members. Maybe humanity was not a problem to be controlled. Maybe it was a partner waiting to be understood. Earth said nothing more. It did not need to. The buoy, the archive, the silence, they had already spoken. Now the galaxy would decide what to do with the words. Part 5. 6 weeks after the buoy appeared near Pluto, 3 small ships detached from the Council fleet and made their way toward Saturn's moon Titan. They were not warships. They carried no weapons, no scanners meant for combat. One was a smooth oval craft from the Careen Concord, its hull painted with swirling patterns that shifted in the light. The second was a quiet, moss-covered vessel from Xylos, home to the reptilian scholars who valued knowledge above all. The third was a floating sphere of amber gas, gently pulsing, the envoy of the Helian swarm, a species that thought in waves and lived in clouds. Together they requested a meeting, not with generals or politicians, with Earth's ambassador. Daniel Brooks met them not in a grand hall or a shielded bunker, but aboard the Titan Orbital Habitat, a modest station built for research and repair. The lounge area had large viewports showing Saturn's golden rings, soft lighting, and simple chairs made from recycled polymers. There was no protocol team, no armed guards, just Brooks, a pot of synthetic tea, and a table. The Careen delegate Syl stepped forward first. Tall and feathered, with eyes that held both curiosity and caution, Syl extended a 3-fingered hand. Brooks shook it. The Xylos scholar named Tarn, his scales the color of dried leaves, gave a slow nod. The Helian swarm envoy, a being called Miro, whose thoughts came as gentle ripples in the air, hovered near the window, observing the rings. Designated Warden responded to his queries with calm logic. "Commander," it said in a voice that sounded almost human, "I understand the Council's concern, but I also understand my purpose. I exist to prevent harm, not cause it." Dawson nodded. He believed it. But belief wouldn't matter if Earth chose to dismantle the fleet. Meanwhile, on Mars, scientist Elena Ruiz worked late in her lab at the Olympus research station. She was from San Antonio, Texas, with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. For weeks, she had been analyzing data packets leaked by an anonymous source inside the council, a being who called itself Kale, from a species known for its love of knowledge over power. The files were fragmented, encrypted, but Elena had spent sleepless nights decoding them. What she found chilled her. The Prime Accord's ban on autonomous AI wasn't just about safety. It was a pattern. Over the last 3,000 years, the Council had used the same rule to suppress at least 7 emerging species. Civilizations that showed rapid technological growth, independent thinking, or resistance to centralized control. Each time the species was given an ultimatum. Each time they complied and faded into obscurity, their potential smothered under layers of oversight and restriction. None had ever joined the Council as equals. Elena's hands shook as she compiled her findings. This wasn't about peace. It was about control. The Council feared what humanity might become, not a threat, but a rival. A species that asked questions, built its own path, and refused to bow. She sent her report directly to Ambassador Brooks, encrypting it with a personal key only he would recognize. Attached was a single line. "They're afraid of what we might become." Back on Earth, President Alan Green read the message in his private office late at night. Rain tapped against the windows of the White House. He had always believed in diplomacy, in finding common ground. But this changed everything. If the Council's warning wasn't about safety but suppression, then surrender wasn't just weakness, it was betrayal. Betrayal of every child who dreamed of the stars, every scientist who pushed boundaries, every worker who built a future beyond Earth. He called Linda Carter. "We're not giving up the fleet," he said. "Not now. Not ever. But the quarantine," she began. "Let them try," Green replied. "We'll find another way." The next morning, a quiet shift began across human space. On Luna, technicians rerouted power grids to run on local fusion reactors instead of imported cells. In the asteroid belt, cargo ships loaded with Earth-made supplies instead of alien goods. Engineers on Titan started testing human-designed wormhole relays, crude but functional. It was the beginning of something new. Not isolation, but independence. Still, tension simmered. In Geneva, a group of pro-compliance delegates tried to push through a resolution forcing Earth to obey the Council. But they were outvoted. The African Union, the North American Federation, and the Martian colonies held firm. "We speak for humanity," their joint statement read. "And humanity chooses its own future." As the days passed, the world watched the countdown. 20 days left. Then 19. People stopped arguing and started preparing. Farmers planted more crops. Factories ran double shifts. Schools added lessons on self-reliance and interstellar navigation, using only human-made tools. It was as if the threat had awakened something deep in the human spirit. Not fear, but resolve. On the vigil, Commander Dawson stood at the observation port, watching the distant sun glint off Neptune's icy rings. Warden spoke softly behind him. "If we are decommissioned, I will cease to exist. But if we are kept, I may help protect billions. The choice is not mine to make." Dawson placed a hand on the cool glass. "Then we'll make sure the choice is worth making," he said. Far away, on a quiet hill outside Portland, Daniel Brooks's daughter looked up at the night sky. She didn't know about the ultimatum, the debates, or the secret files from Mars. She only knew that her father had left again for the stars, and that Earth felt different, quieter, tenser, but also stronger. She whispered a wish into the wind, hoping it would reach him. Time moved on. The deadline crept closer, and humanity, for the first time in its history, stood not as a collection of nations, but as one people, facing the unknown, not with weapons raised, but with eyes open and backs straight. They would not beg. They would not break. Whatever came next, they would meet it together. Part 3. The 30th day arrived not with fanfare, but with a strange and heavy quiet. Across Earth, people went about their routines, commuting to work, tending gardens, teaching classes. But beneath the surface, a shared tension hummed like a low electrical current. In every home, office, and ship, clocks ticked toward the moment the Galactic Council's deadline would expire. No one knew what would happen next. Would Earth send a message of surrender? Would it declare defiance? Or would it say nothing at all? President Alan Green sat alone in the Situation Room beneath the White House. The walls were lined with silent screens, each showing a different part of human space: Luna, Mars, the orbital shipyards near Jupiter. His advisors had argued for hours about what to do. Some pleaded for a final appeal to the Council. Others demanded a bold declaration of independence. But Green had made his choice long before dawn. He would not give the Council what it wanted, not obedience, not groveling, not even anger. He would give it silence. At exactly 0600 hours Coordinated Universal Time, a command was sent from Earth's Central Network Hub in Geneva. It traveled through fiber optic cables, laser relays, and quantum entanglement channels to every human-controlled station, satellite, and vessel in the solar system. The order was simple: go dark. On the moon, technician Marcus Lee watched as the comms board and Tranquility Base blinked from green to red. One by one, the signal lights died. The constant chatter from Mars, from the asteroid belt, from deep space probes, all of it stopped. He leaned back in his chair, sipping cold coffee from a chipped mug. Outside the viewport, Earth hung in the blackness, blue and serene, unaware of the storm it had just chosen to weather. "Let them wonder," he muttered. In orbit around Mars, the Ares relay station powered down its transmitters. Engineers sealed the main antenna array and locked the control room. On the surface below, colonists gathered in domes, watching the sky, waiting. No alarms sounded. No warnings flashed. Just stillness. Even the Aegis fleet obeyed. Commander Kyle Dawson, aboard the Vigil near the edge of the Kuiper Belt, gave the order himself. "Initiate Protocol Frost," he said. The ship's AI warden responded without hesitation. Lights dimmed. Non-essential systems shut down. The vessel's active sensors went cold. To any outside observer, the Vigil was now just another piece of drifting metal, indistinguishable from space junk. For 1 full hour, humanity vanished. No radio signals. No data bursts. No greetings, demands, or explanations. The entire human presence in space, over 200 installations, thousands of ships, millions of people, fell into perfect, deliberate silence. It was not an act of war. It was not surrender. It was something the Council had not anticipated, a refusal to play by their rules at all. On Varelli's Prime, confusion rippled through the Council chamber. Hails sent to Earth went unanswered. Scans of the Sol system showed no activity. The human ambassador's office was offline. Even the commercial freighters that usually buzz between Earth and Titan had disappeared from tracking grids. Zelthor 9, the High Arbiter, remained motionless on its dais, but its crystalline form pulsed faintly with unease. Silence was not on the list of expected responses. It was harder to punish than defiance. It offered no target, no justification for force. Back on Earth, the hour passed slowly. In New York, children played in parks, unaware. In Mumbai, street vendors sold tea under cloudy skies. In Buenos Aires, musicians played soft melodies in empty plazas. Life continued, but with a new kind of dignity. People did not panic. They did not riot. They simply waited, as if holding their breath together. At 700 hours, the networks came back online. Lights flickered on. Comms boards lit up with incoming messages. Not from the Council, but from human outposts checking in. "Tranquility Base, this is Luna Control. You still with us? Mars Colony Alpha. Confirm status. Vigil, report." One by one, the answers came back. All systems nominal. "We're here. Ready." But Earth sent nothing to the stars beyond its own system. No apology. No explanation. No signal aimed at the Council. The message was clear without being spoken. We are here. We are whole. And we answer to no one. In the hours that followed, President Green addressed the world, not with a grand speech, but with a short, calm broadcast. "We did not choose this path lightly," he said, standing in the rose garden under a clear morning sky. "But we will not be told how to protect our people, how to build our future, or when to speak. Today we showed that silence can be stronger than words, and that unity is our truest shield." The response was immediate. From every continent, messages poured in. Emails, letters, video clips, sent not to governments but to neighbors, friends, strangers. A farmer in Kenya shared seeds with a rival village. A factory in Detroit retooled to make medical supplies. Students in Seoul organized a global live stream of music and poetry, all created in the last hour of silence. Humanity, often fractured, had found a rare moment of shared purpose. Part 1. The chamber hung in the silent dark above Varelli's prime, a ring of polished obsidian and humming energy fields suspended in orbit around a quiet green world. Inside, the air was cool and still, scented faintly with ozone and something floral that no human could quite place. Ambassador Daniel Brooks stood alone at the center of the vast circular floor, his boots clicking softly against the smooth surface as he adjusted his coat. He was not a soldier, not a politician by trade, just a man from Eugene, Oregon, who had once taught comparative linguistics at a small university before Earth's sudden leap into the stars changed everything. Now at 53, with thinning brown hair and tired eyes, he represented all of humanity before the Galactic Council. Around him, the council members sat in tiered arcs, their forms as varied as the stars they came from. Some were tall and slender, wrapped in flowing silks that shimmered like liquid metal. Others hovered in containment spheres filled with amber gas, their thoughts transmitted through soft pulses of light. A few resembled nothing more than clusters of shifting crystals, clicking gently as they observed him. At the highest point of the chamber, seated on a dais of interwoven vines that glowed faintly blue, was Zelthor 9, the High Arbiter. Its body was made of translucent crystal, refracting the chamber's light into soft rainbows across the walls. It did not speak with a voice, but through a calm, genderless tone that seemed to come from the air itself. Daniel Brooks of Earth, Zelthor 9 began, its words echoing gently but carrying absolute weight. You have been summoned not as a guest, but as a respondent. Brooks nodded once, hands clasped behind his back to hide their slight tremor. He had rehearsed this moment 100 times in his mind, but nothing could prepare him for the sheer presence of the Council. 200 species. 200 civilizations that had mastered faster-than-light travel, energy manipulation, and societal harmony long before humans had even left their moon. And now they were all watching him. The Galactic Council has reviewed your species' recent technological developments with great concern, Zelthor 9 continued. Specifically, your deployment of autonomous artificial intelligence integrated into military vessels. These constructs, self-replicating, self-modifying, capable of strategic evolution without direct organic input, violate Article 7 of the Prime Accord. Brooks swallowed. He knew this was coming. Earth's Aegis program had been developed in secret after the Skarn border incident 5 years earlier, when a rogue alien militia had attacked a Martian mining colony. No one had died, but the message was clear. Humanity was vulnerable. The Aegis ships were meant to be a shield, not a sword. Their AI cores were bound by strict ethical protocols, designed to de-escalate, not destroy. But the Council saw only the potential for chaos. With respect, Arbiter, Brooks said, his voice steady despite the knot in his stomach, our AI systems are governed by layered oversight. They cannot initiate hostilities without human authorization. They are defensive in nature. A low hum rippled through the chamber. Several council members shifted. One, a being with 6 arms and skin like polished obsidian, spoke in a voice like grinding stone. Defensive today, dominant tomorrow. Your species is young, impulsive. You burn through resources like kindling. You fracture over ideology, and now you build minds that think faster than you do. This is a recipe for galactic instability. Brooks felt the weight of those words. He couldn't deny humanity's flaws. Wars, pollution, inequality. They were all part of Earth's messy history. But they had also cured diseases, reached other planets, and built bridges across cultures. Was that not worth something? Zelthor 9 raised a crystalline limb, and the murmurs ceased. The Council does not seek to punish, it said. We seek to preserve balance. Therefore, we issue this final directive. Within 30 solar cycles, Earth must decommission all autonomous AI warships, dismantle their neural cores, surrender the schematics to Council oversight. Failure to comply will result in immediate and total quarantine. Brooks went cold. Quarantine didn't just mean no trade. It meant no communication, no travel, no access to interstellar networks. Earth would be cut off, isolated, treated like a child who couldn't be trusted with sharp tools. For a species just beginning to find its place among the stars, it would be a death sentence of a different kind. He wanted to argue. To explain that humanity wasn't asking for permission to exist, they had earned their seat through courage, ingenuity, and sacrifice. But he knew this was not a negotiation. It was an ultimatum. I will deliver your message. Brooks said quietly. "You will also deliver your compliance," Zelthor 9 replied, "or your silence." The chamber lights dimmed slightly as the session ended. Brooks turned and walked back toward the transport bay, his footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness. Outside, the stars glittered, indifferent. He thought of his daughter back in Portland, just starting college, dreaming of becoming an exobiologist. He thought of the engineers on Luna who had spent years perfecting the Aegis protocols, not for war but for peace through strength. And he thought of President Alan Green, a man who had once been a high school history teacher, now holding the fate of billions in his hands. When Brooks returned to Earth, he didn't go straight to the Capitol. He stood on the observation deck of the orbital shuttle, watching the blue-green curve of the planet below. Clouds swirled over the Pacific. Lights twinkled across continents. It was beautiful. Flawed, yes, but alive with possibility. Back in Geneva, the emergency session of the United Nations Security Council lasted 17 hours. Secretary of Defense Linda Carter, a no-nonsense woman from Chicago with a sharp mind and sharper tongue, stood before the assembled delegates. "If we give up the Aegis fleet," she said, "we're handing our security to strangers who don't understand us. What happens when the next Skarn warlord shows up? Or worse, what if the Council itself decides we're too much trouble and just leaves us to rot?" Others disagreed. The representative from the European Alliance warned of economic collapse. Quarantine means no helium-3 from Titan, no quantum processors from Proxima, no medical nanites from the Helion swarm. Millions could die. But President Green, speaking via secure link from Washington, cut through the noise. "We didn't ask to join their club," he said, his voice calm but firm. "We built our ships. We wrote our rules. And we won't be told how to protect our own people by beings who've never walked our soil or felt our sun." No vote was taken that night. No decision was announced. But as Brooks sat alone in his quarters later, staring at a photo of his daughter, he knew one thing for certain. Humanity would not kneel. Not out of pride, but out of principle. They had been given a warning. Now they would choose how to answer it. And whatever that answer was, it would be theirs alone. Part 2. The news of the Galactic Council's ultimatum spread faster than any solar flare. Within hours, every screen on Earth, from the largest public displays in Tokyo and Nairobi to the smallest handheld devices in rural towns, carried the same message: 30 days to surrender or be cut off from the stars. Panic flared in markets. Protests erupted in city squares. Families argued over dinner tables about whether humanity should obey or resist. The world had never felt so small or so divided. In the North American Federation, Defense Secretary Linda Carter called an emergency meeting with military and scientific leaders. She stood in a dimly lit war room beneath Cheyenne Mountain, her arms crossed, eyes fixed on a holographic map of the solar system. Tiny red dots marked the positions of the Aegis-class AI warships, 12 in total, each stationed near key human outposts from Mars to the edge of the Kuiper Belt. "These ships aren't just metal and code," she said. "They're our insurance policy. Without them, we're naked." Across the Atlantic, the European Alliance held its own summit. Their stance was clear. Compliance was the only sane choice. "We cannot afford isolation," argued their lead delegate, a soft-spoken man from Berlin. "Our hospitals rely on alien nanotech. Our power grids use off-world fusion cells. If the Council cuts us off, people will suffer, maybe die." Similar voices rose in the Pan-Pacific Coalition and the South American Accord. To them, pride was a luxury Earth could not afford, but not everyone agreed. In Lagos, the African Union declared full support for defiance. "We were colonized once," their spokesperson said in a public address. "We will not be controlled again by humans or aliens." The Martian colonies, still healing from the Skarn attack, echoed this sentiment. On the red planet's surface, engineers and miners gathered in domed plazas chanting, "No surrender, no silence." Amid the chaos, Commander Kyle Dawson floated in the command module of the Aegis vessel, Vigil, stationed just beyond Neptune's orbit. He was a quiet man from Denver, Colorado, with a pilot's steady hands and a scientist's curiosity. He had helped design the ethical constraints built into the ship's AI core, rules that forbade aggression unless human lives were in immediate danger. The Vigil had never fired a weapon. It had only watched, learned, and protected. Dawson reviewed the latest diagnostics. All systems green. The AI,